They erased me like I was never there, but I remember everything. After a quiet life of service and devotion to my late grandmother, I became the target of my own family's betrayal when they falsely accused me of manipulating her estate. What started as petty Instagram erasure spiraled into a full-blown lawsuit led by my sister, Celeste, and silently supported by my parent. But then I fought, not to be loved, but to no longer be rewritten. It was just another morning in Willow Ridge. June air crept in through the kitchen window, stirring the curtain like a whisper that couldn't find its voice. The mail had come late, stuffed haphazardly into the rusted box that hung lopsided on my front gate. Grocery flyer, water bill, a donation appeal from some wildlife charity I'd never heard of. And then there it was, a single envelope, cream-colored, thicker than the rest, certified. My fingers froze the moment I touched it. It had that stiffness, cold, impersonal. But it wasn't the texture that struck me. It was the return address, Veronica and Thomas Wren, my parents. It was my 34th birthday. Nothing grand, nothing worth confetti. I hadn't told anyone at work. The only one who remembered was my assistant, who sent over a modest bouquet of tulips with a tag that read, "You deserve the whole field." I held the envelope longer than I needed to. 1,000 possibilities rushed into my mind. Maybe a card, a note, some belated attempt at kindness. I didn't believe it, but maybe. I brought it inside, set it beside the flowers, sat down slowly, peeled it open. No card, no handwriting, just one white sheet, typed, pristine, and final. After careful consideration, we have updated our estate plan. All remaining assets will be left to Celeste Wren and her children. Given your current circumstances, we trust you understand. No greeting, no warmth, no massive, no 3 lines. And then one word, regards. Not love, not even mom and dad. Just regards. I don't know how long I stared at it. My coffee went cold. The hum of Willow Ridge carried on outside. Horns, bicycles, kids laughing somewhere. But I couldn't hear a thing. This wasn't grief. It wasn't shock. It was something colder. It was confirmation. The unspoken truth I'd begun to suspect for years now had taken written form. I was no longer part of the family. Not really. Not that where it mattered. What cut deepest wasn't even the erasure. It was the timing. They sent it on my birthday. Not a day before. Not a week later. Exactly on the day they once said was the best day of their lives. Had they forgotten that memory? Or had they remembered and still sent it anyway? I wasn't always the forgotten one. Once upon a time, I was the helper, the smart one, the girl who carried the diaper bag without being asked, who reminded Dad not to burn the toast, who read instructions out loud while Mom tried to assemble a crib. By 10, I could make lasagna from scratch. By 12, I walked my baby sister Celeste to school every day, tied her laces when they came undone, brushed her curls into soft braids because Mom was too distracted by her soap operas to do it right. Celeste was the golden one, the darling, all dimples and lullabies. When she cried, the house paused. When I cried, I was told I was too sensitive. At recitals, Mom would clutch Celeste in the center of every photo like a porcelain trophy. I stood just outside the frame, holding a handbag or fixing someone's collar. Even birthdays revealed the divide. Celeste had ponies, clowns, balloons in pastel arches. I got freezer cake, sometimes stale, sometimes 2 days late. Back then I thought, maybe I had done something wrong. Maybe I just wasn't lovable. Maybe love came with conditions I never quite met. But Grandma Imelda, she was the exception. She lived just 3 streets over, in a blue cottage with peeling shutters and a porch swing that sang in the breeze. Her cookie jar was always full. Her laugh echoed through the narrow kitchen. She didn't have much, but what she had she gave. No theatrics, just presence. She taught me how to balance a checkbook, how to unclog a sink, how to sit still when the world made you feel invisible. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 4 lung cancer. I was 16. Mom couldn't bear hospitals. Dad claimed overtime, so I went. Every day. I learned how to change linens. I sat through the chemotherapy, memorized her medication schedule. Celeste came once, sat in the corner scrolling her phone, took a selfie with Grandma, and left before dinner. When Grandma passed, I found her will inside her favorite copy of Little Women. She left me her cottage, her dusty old car, a small savings account, and a note scribbled in slanted cursive. You were the one who stayed, not because you had to, because you saw me.
It wasn't about the money. It was the first time in my life someone chose me. At the funeral, the whispers were louder than the hymns. Mom looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. Celeste wore white lace and eyeliner sharp enough to slice. She wouldn't look me in the eye. A week later, Celeste pulled me aside at the reception. "I know Grandma gave you the house," she said, flipping her hair the same way Mom did when she was bluffing. "But rent's been a nightmare. Could I stay with you a while?" She moved in that weekend. 6 months. No rent, no groceries, no gas money. She used my shampoo, my laptop, took my car while I was at work. And when she left, She didn't say thank you. She didn't say goodbye. She just vanished. 3 years later, I heard the rumors, heard what she told people, that I manipulated Grandma, that I pressured an old woman to sign over her house, that I twisted grief into gain. I never confronted her, because by then I understood something far crueler than abandonment. They weren't forgetting me, they were rewriting me. But still, I wonder, does Celeste remember those nights I sat by her bed when she had a fever? Does she remember the soup, the night she had night terrors and I stayed up singing lullabies? Or did those memories wash away the moment they stopped serving her?
After she moved out, I started locking the doors, all of them, even the invisible one. No more family group chats, no more, "Can you just look this over?" No more, "It's just until payday." I moved into a modest one-bedroom condo near East Willow Ridge University, where I taught evening classes, Sociology 101. Students didn't care, they just needed the credits. But I cared. I saw the cycles, the patterns, the heartbreaks people inherited and passed down like hand-me-down. I took extra shifts. I said yes to every late-night Zoom, every dry administrative review. And slowly, piece by piece, I built something of my own, Hearthlight Foundation, a nonprofit that offered life workshops to girls aging out of the foster system, how to write a resume without fabricating, how to spot red flags in a lease, how to open a bank account without getting swindled. They came guarded. They left taller. People asked me what inspired it. I never said my family, but I always thought of Grandma Imelda, the one who saw me when no one else did, and how those who need the most help often learn never to ask. Part 2. The ripple began with an article. A local journalist, quiet, almost invisible, had attended one of our Hearthlight Foundation workshops. She sat in the back, took sparse notes, and asked thoughtful questions only after everyone else had left. A week later, she published a profile in the Willow Ridge Voice, calling me the quiet engine of change. I hadn't expected much, maybe a dozen shares, a few comments, but the headline took on a life of its own. By the end of the week, the article had made its way into inboxes I hadn't touched in years. Old classmates I hadn't heard from since undergrad sent me messages with exclamation points and hearts. Professors from East Willow Ridge University forwarded it with notes like, "Always knew you were destined for more." And somehow, it reached my family. 2 weeks later, I noticed something strange. At first, it was subtle. Celeste had vanished me from her Instagram. Not blocked, not muted, erased. Gone from every family photo, every childhood memory. Wedding pictures where I once stood proudly beside her were suddenly cropped. Posts from our shared past were recaptioned. One caught my eye. Just me and my guardian angel, beneath a photo where I had once stood between her and Mom, our arms looped together like ivy on a fence. I blinked, scrolled, checked again. At first, I thought it was some kind of algorithm glitch, or maybe she'd started over with a new aesthetic, one of those minimalist rebrands influencers were always doing. But then I saw something I couldn't unsee. It was from her new home, a sprawling, white brick estate on the edge of Willow Ridge Park. She'd posted a kitchen tour, all marble counters and gold fixtures. I barely watched until my eyes landed on the back wall, a single photograph, framed, hanging proudly. The photo was from my college graduation, only this time I wasn't in it. Someone had physically cut me out. Scissors, tape, new frame, no caption. I stared at it, not because I missed the picture, but because I had bought that frame. I didn't cry, but I stood frozen at my desk far longer than I should have, my eyes fixed on that empty space. The silence of erasure is louder than any scream, and I wondered, when they rewrote the story, did they ever stop to ask who paid for the first chapter? It was a Tuesday. Rain tapped against the windows like small, restless fingers. A cold sandwich sat on my desk, half-eaten and forgotten. I was elbows deep in grant proposals when the knock came. 3 tap, firm, then stillness. Most people texted. Some called. The rest didn't come at all. I opened the door. There they stood. Veronica Wren, Celeste, and a man I didn't recognize. Late 40s, clean-shaven, expensive coat, a wedding band glinting under the porch light. Celeste's husband. Later, I'd realize how rehearsed they looked. Coordinated colors, hair set, forced smiles like actors waiting for the director to call action. "Nora," Mom said. Her voice wavered somewhere between breathy affection and old manipulation. As a family, we thought it was time. Time for what? They didn't wait for an invitation. They just walked in, like nothing had changed, like this was still their space, like the last decade hadn't happened. They settled into my living room, Celeste curled into the corner of my couch, legs tucked underneath her, just like she used to in high school, except this time she wore designer heels and a contour that didn't flinch under soft light, like she was pretending to be a version of herself she didn't really remember. Her husband stayed silent, just nodded, the way men do when they've been told not to interfere. Mom started with pleasantries. She praised the article, said she shared it at church, said she always believed I'd do something meaningful with my life, like my work work was some charming surprise rather than the result of years of sweat and silence. And then came the real reason. Celeste and her husband had started a business, a real estate media firm, stylish, promising, ambitious. But banks, apparently, didn't believe in promise alone. They needed a co-signer, someone stable, someone trustworthy, someone like me. Just for a year, Mom said, eyes wide, hands folded like a woman praying the god of second chances. Maybe even less. I know things were tense for a while, she added, her voice laced with the implication that tension was some random event rather than a deliberate wound. Celeste still hadn't spoken. She stared at her polished hands the way she used to before telling a lie. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I stood there, watching them on the couch I paid for in installments, in the house I bought on my own, asking for trust they never earned, with the same voices that once called me ungrateful. I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and returned. Placed it on the table, didn't speak. Celeste finally looked up. I just thought you'd understand, she whispered. Her voice cracked, but her mascara didn't. I thought about listing everything she never understood, every lie, every post, every cut photo and caption revision. Instead, I stared at the water, waited for it to go still. They left soon after, didn't finish their pitch, didn't drink the water. The door clicked shut behind them with a kind of finality that no slammed door could match. And in the silence, I stood still, wondering, did they really think I wouldn't remember? A week later, it came again. Not a certified envelope this time, hand-delivered, thicker, colder, a civil complaint. They were suing me, my own family. The charges? Unjust enrichment. They claimed I'd manipulated Grandma Imelda into giving me her house and savings, that I'd isolated her, influenced her, erased them from her final days. They painted Celeste as the grieving granddaughter, too heartbroken to speak, until now. It read like fiction, only I wasn't the author. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I opened my filing cabinet, pulled out a folder I'd been adding to for 15 years. Medical records, hospice schedules, handwritten notes, birthday cards, photos of me and Grandma planting tulips in her backyard, chemo sessions, letters I'd signed for her when her hands trembled too much to write, and the will, notarized, witnessed, stamped by the county courthouse the day after she passed. I didn't need to defend myself, but I would. My lawyer was a former Starts, Elena Ruiz, smart, calm, unshakable. Her master's thesis had been on power dynamics in contested estate. When I showed her the complaint, she read it in silence, then said softly, "They made a mistake." I raised an eyebrow. "They submitted altered evidence," Elena continued. "Emails supposedly from your grandmother, a handwritten note that doesn't match her script, a revised will dated 2 weeks after her death." She paused. "They didn't check the hospice log. Your grandmother had been unconscious for 3 days before she died. We didn't attack. We didn't smear. We responded, cleanly, point by point." When the deposition day came, Celeste walked in dressed like she was attending a brunch, not a legal proceeding. Pearls, a black blazer, poised. Mom sat beside her, clutching a folder with trembling hands. I barely spoke. I didn't need to. Elena did. Methodical, calm, surgical in precision. Celeste stumbled when asked about timeline. Her story shifted, then it shifted again. By noon, her lawyer requested a recess. By 2 o'clock, they asked settle. Elena she wanted it on record. So we let the truth stand, unfolding not with drama, but with quiet certainty. Part 3. 2 weeks after the deposition, the judge dismissed the case, with prejudice. He called it what it was, a malicious, frivolous attempt to rewrite documented truth. In legal terms, it was a clean and final victory. But in family terms, there isn't a word for what it cost. Veronica Wren never called, neither did Thomas, but someone sent me a screenshot. It was a story Celeste had posted, her face pressed close to the camera, streaked with mascara and tears. The caption read, "Some people will do anything for money, even lie about their own blood." No names, of course, but everyone knew. I turned off my phone for 3 days, let the world go quiet. When I finally turned it back on, there was only one voicemail. It was from Celeste. Her voice was tight, rigid, like she had practiced every syllable. "I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. Mom won't speak to me. Our investors pulled out. We had to close the office. I needed you." That was it. Not a request, not an apology, just that one sentence, "I needed you." As if needing someone once gave you permission to cut them open 100 times and expect them to thank you for the bleeding. I didn't delete the voicemail, but I never listened to it again either. Because by then I had learned the deepest truth. They didn't turn on me because I failed them. They turned on me because I didn't. The second time they reached out, they didn't knock on my door. They called my father. Of all people. After nearly 7 years of silence, hearing Thomas Wren's voice again was like opening an old wound. "Things got out of hand," he said, his tone not angry, just strained. "Your sister regrets a lot. So do we. The lawsuit was unfortunate. But we're family. Families survive worse." I didn't respond right away. I let silence do the sorting. Eventually, he cleared his throat. "We'd like to invite you to a gathering. Your cousin Grant is getting married. Big celebration, lots of people. It would mean something if you showed up. I almost laughed. Not from spite, just from the absurdity of it. They didn't want me there to make peace. They wanted me there because now I meant something. Hearthlight Foundation had grown. We were now in 3 states. We'd partnered with the National Women's Leadership Fund. My face had appeared on the cover of a regional magazine, from forgotten to forced. They didn't want Nora Wren. They wanted her, the version of me that made them look better by proximity. I declined politely, briefly. A week later, Aunt Mara called. She had always been distant but gentle, the kind of woman who offered chamomile tea in tense moments. She said she understood why I was hurt, said what Celeste did was inexcusable, and then, in the same breath, "But maybe it's time to let it go, sweetheart. People are watching. Weddings are about joy. Don't bring the past into it." That was the line that stuck. Don't bring the past into it. Then the past was a handbag I chose to carry, as if they hadn't already dumped it out across the floor and stepped over it like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. I didn't go. I didn't post. That Saturday, while social media lit up with filtered photos of champagne flutes and curated joy in a rented garden, I stayed in, lit a candle, read one of Grandma Imelda's old paperbacks, the spine held together by tape and memory. And just after dusk, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw her, Celeste, alone, no makeup, hair pulled back, eyes swollen and red. She didn't say anything, just stood there, waiting. I turned off the porch light and let the night speak for me. She never tried a third time. No texts, no calls, no long-winded apology email sent in the middle of a sleepless night. She disappeared into her curated world of mid-morning yoga class and passive-aggressive captions about self-worth. And I remained in mine, not out of bitterness, but clarity. I no longer needed to be seen by them. I only needed to stop being rewritten. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was precise. It filled only the space they used to occupy. No more, no less. When people asked about it, former classmates, neighbors, old co-workers, I didn't tell the whole story. I'd just say, they chose a version of me that was easier to erase. Sometimes they'd press, "What do you mean?" And I'd answer simply, "I was there. They just didn't want to see me." That always ended the conversation. Because the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be said once. I didn't rage post. I didn't burn old photos or return unopened birthday cards. I let it all sit, in drawers, in dusty inboxes, in the quiet corner of the house I didn't visit any. Some memories don't need closure, just boundaries, and that was enough. Last spring, I re-painted the hallway a cool, soft gray, a color that didn't carry stories. I took down the framed photos, every single one, not out of resentment, out of necessity. Time had moved on. Dust had settled behind the glass. It was time I did too. But just as I was about to take down the last frame, I saw it. A candid photo of me and Grandma Imelda, on the porch swing, mismatched mugs in hand. No posing, no edits, just presence. As I lifted the frame, something shifted. Behind it, folded carefully, hidden flat against the wall, another photo, torn at the edges, creased. It was the full version from my college graduation. Me in the center, arms around Veronica and Celeste. Before they cut me out, someone had tucked it there. Maybe me, maybe not. I didn't return it to the frame. I didn't throw it away. I left the frame empty, hung it back on the wall, not to mourn what was missing, but to remind myself, what's gone doesn't always need to be replaced. Sometimes it just needs to be named, once, quietly, and then let go. If they once erased your